Now, as part of this discussion, as part of this block of time as we think about what's been happening internationally, David and I were talking, and he thought it made sense to kind of come out and give you some additional perspective on really what the implications are of what LifeWave is doing globally. There's something bigger than ourselves going on here, and who better to express what that really means and what's on David's heart as we move forward on a global basis. So once again, our CEO, founder, and inventor, David Schmidt.
Thank you, Jim.
You bet.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are so incredibly blessed to have a global community. And I wanted to take the time this morning to step back and discuss with you as a team and as a global community what type of responsibility comes with this and how big of an impact we can make on the world today. So Jim started a slogan which was building to a billion together. And so what I'm going to challenge you with today is why stop there? And the other reason to do this is we're coming out of a period of time where people have a lot of concerns about what's going to happen in the future. The world has changed in some pretty dramatic ways, and in many ways in not such a good way. So let's use this as an opportunity to keep a positive focus and look at solutions to some of the biggest problems that are facing the world today, and then also what type of opportunity this could present to LifeWave in our community. So let's take a look at this. We are here. So I am going to be, this should be the first sign to tell you I'm going to be channeling my inner Tony Stark this morning, not my inner Elon Musk. We're not on Mars, okay? God bless him. But we're here on Earth, okay? This is the place that God created for us, and we have done a disastrous job of destroying this planet, okay? So it is up to us, since we're going to be living longer, to find solutions. We can't do what previous generations did, which is simply pass the buck and say, okay, well, it's going to be up to our kids to solve these problems. That doesn't work. We have to come up with solutions, and we have to implement them. So we're one community. First, we'll start with an obvious one on global health care. And we don't really have to spend a lot of time on it. A good place to start when we're thinking about global health care is on basic nutrition. First, over 10% of the world's population, over 800 million people, aren't getting proper nutrition or enough food. And I think we would all agree that those people that do get enough food are still not getting proper nutrition, right? We just look at the proliferation of places like McDonald's, and we know people aren't eating properly. So this is going to have an obvious adverse effect on people's health. We have to start with the foundation. Also, if we look at the amount of money that governments are spending on health versus something like military, and I'm all in favor of countries having the means to protect themselves, right? Because human beings can be pretty bad. But this is totally skewed in the wrong direction, right? We're spending far too much money in the wrong direction and not enough money in the right places. So what happens when someone goes to a conventional westernized medical doctor, or most healthcare systems around the world? First thing they're going to do is the doctor will say, well, you have this condition, so we're going to prescribe a drug. Harvard did a study and said you've got about a 20% chance of having an adverse reaction to a new drug. Can you imagine in the network marketing industry, 60% or more of the companies sell supplements? If a supplement that a network marketing company carried, there was over a 20% chance of having an adverse reaction, right? We know what a regulatory body would do. It would immediately remove that product from the market. Ephedra was taken off the market because 130 people had an adverse effect. Okay, this is ridiculous. In just the United States, 1.9 million people are hospitalized from adverse reactions to drugs, and it gets even worse. People that are in hospitals that get prescribed medications have adverse reactions. So it's about over 2.7 million people just in the United States are having adverse events to prescription pharmaceutical drugs. This is not okay. It's not acceptable. So what do? The first thing is we can implement technology that already exists today to provide people with proper nutrition to give them a foundation, right? Vertical farming, which companies are implementing, will provide not only enough food, but it's going to provide proper nutrition for people around the globe. And if you bear with me a few minutes, you're going to see why I brought this up. Also, in addition, we know that the standard of care needs to change. In other words, standard of care, which would be established by the conventional westernized medical system, is you get a diagnosis, maybe you have blood or urine testing, and you get prescribed a pharmaceutical drug, right? That whole paradigm needs to change. We know that things like ozone therapy, which has been around for decades, is an incredibly powerful tool that we can use to treat diseases like cancer, AIDS, all varieties of viral and bacterial infections, and it should be the first line of defense that people get when they're diagnosed with a condition. Hyperbaric chambers, we were talking a little bit about that yesterday in terms of life extension, but it certainly has enormous value. We have over 70 patents on pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So for disorders like diabetes, where it's going to impair circulation, we can use existing technology to improve microcirculation and reduce the impact of these disorders. So, and of course, light therapy, right? But these technologies which exist can dramatically reduce the burden on the healthcare system, give people proper nutrition, keep them healthy, and this is going to be great for everyone, except the drug companies, sorry. Okay, so that's a little bit about healthcare. Now let's get into something that I think you'll find interesting and different. We're not going to have a debate on global warming, okay? I know that there are people on both sides of the fence here. Since we want to keep this positive, we are going to leave some certain politicians out of this that say that we're going to die in 10 years from global warming, okay? We're going to push that off to the side. And I'm not trying to diminish this by any means. By the way, did you know that in the 1970s, Leonard Nimoy on TV was saying that scientists were predicting by the year 2000 we would be living in an ice age? In the 1960s, scientists were estimating that global warming was going to affect the planet enough that the water levels would come up and there would be islands that would and countries that would totally disappear. So I am not trying to diminish the effect of global warming, but I want to change the argument to something that all of us can agree on. So as many people that are on the side of the argument, where they're saying, well, we're going to perish in 10 years or 20 years, there's other people that are saying, well, yes, global warming is a real phenomena, but it is not the epic, life-ending event that it's being made out to be. So if you're interested in reading up on this, this fellow here, Bjorn Lomborg, has gained a lot of notoriety. He's an influencer and thinker over in Denmark, in Copenhagen. And basically what he's saying is, look, I've analyzed all the evidence. Global warming's a real thing, but it's not going to be devastating. These are things that we can manage, so we don't need to go into a state of fear over this. So let's instead change the argument and talk about something that we can all agree on, which is pollution, right? We can all agree that we want to breathe clean air, clean water. We don't want to have garbage dumps on land or in the water. And the statistics on global pollution is absolutely shocking. It's, I would even say, criminal. Over 1 million seabirds, 100,000 sea mammals are killed every year by pollution. This is a fact that just slips by, doesn't gain any media attention, and it is criminal what we're doing. 20% higher risk of death from lung cancer, people that are living in polluted areas. I spoke with a doctor in Singapore, and he told me that the Chinese government is suppressing information that they're estimating because of all the pollution in China, the life expectancy is 43. And they don't have a plan to address the pollution because of their goals of industrialization. So we can't allow this kind of thinking to continue. 40% of the lakes in America are too polluted to swim or fish in, okay? Why aren't we talking about these issues? We're talking about Green New Deal and clean energy, but how many years is that away, and is that even going to provide us with answers, right? Manufacturing lithium batteries generates enormous amounts of pollution, so this shouldn't be the answer. 1.2 trillion gallons of untreated waste. The only people I know that deal with numbers in the trillions are the US government, right? 1.2 trillion gallons of untreated sewage. This is absolutely outrageous. Look at this. 3 million children are dying each year because of environmental pollution. This is outrageous. When we think about the number of people that are reported to have died of COVID, it's terrible, but yet more children are dying each year from global pollution. And then finally, 14 billion pounds of trash is being dumped into our oceans each year, absolutely legally. I grew up in New Jersey, and in order to get from New Jersey to Long Island, you have to travel through Staten Island. And in Staten Island, there's a place called the Arthur Kill. And when I was younger and I would drive over to Long Island, I'd have to close up my windows, close all the vents, because the smell from the Arthur Kill, which is they turned this whole huge area into a gigantic garbage dump. And then you would see boats that would get loaded up with this trash. They go about 3 miles offshore and legally dump that trash into the ocean, right? What can we do about this? Well, this is a technology. I was part of a group just before LifeWave, over 20 years ago, where we were developing a completely clean power generation system and a method for removing trash, municipal solid waste, called pyrolysis. And this system destroys trash and garbage in the absence of oxygen. And this is really critical. So what you do is you take this chamber, you heat it up, you have a valve that allows trash to move through, it breaks it down into a carbon char, and the heat that's given off from the reaction is used in a heat exchange to create steam, and that steam drives a turbine, and the turbine produces electricity at 85% efficiency with no CO2 emissions, because we're only doing it on waste heat. There's no CO2 emissions because you've converted the trash to carbon, and now that carbon powder can be used for paving roads, creating bricks, and creating roofing material. So this removes 100% of the waste from garbage. The system that we built, the demonstration unit, was capable of processing 50 tons per day. And the plant, which was on about 6 acres, was capable of processing 500 tons per day. So that's about 1 million pounds of garbage out of the environment every single day from one small facility that was in California. This was before 9/11, and eventually when the government came around to looking at this, they funded a methane generation plant which was 6% efficient. And about 3 years after that, all the people involved went to jail because there was money being exchanged under the table. So that's why this never got funded in the state of California, but it was on the table. And as it turns out, if I had gone in that direction, I never would have started LifeWave. And so I'm kind of grateful on that end that it didn't work out. But so what I want to ask you to think about, the reason why I'm bringing this up, is imagine, if we start thinking about our community a little bit differently. We've already got a global reach. Imagine if we created together a network marketing company where every time you got paid because trash was being removed from the environment and clean energy without any CO2 emissions was being produced. So we don't have to create new technology. It already exists. It can be demonstrated. And this is one of my visions for the future of a direction we can go in. If it's God's plan, I'll follow it. I am committed to that. My plans don't work out too well. I would rather trust in God. So let's see how we're directed and how this goes. Now, I had to bring this up. You may be wondering, we have a lot of CO2 that's already in the environment and it's already in the oceans. What can we do about this? Well, you probably heard recently that Elon Musk said that he would sell Tesla stock and he would solve some of these problems that we're talking about today if the United Nations could tell him how they were going to be spending the money. Well, the problem is already solved, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do this, how we're going to solve global warming today with existing technology, and the enormous benefits that comes from it. So this is the device that we have patented and tested now for over 10 years, and it's loosely in the field of electroagriculture. And that simply means that we're not going to use any type of genetic modification. We're going to work with nature and simply put them in an environment to optimize the way that plants and animals would normally function. So this is a system that we've tested in California. Many of you may recognize this as Cannabis. It's not my particular flavor as a health advocate, but in any case, we had the opportunity. So we went in to a number of different facilities in California and Colorado, and we've been doing this now for many years, showing that we can dramatically increase the growth rate of cannabis. So I'm going to show you some of these results. That is a control and a treatment plant. And what we showed over a period of 4 to 6 months is that the growth rate of these plants increases by about 80%. Non-genetic, no special soil, no special type of treatments. That's what a cannabis plant or tree looks like compared to the control when it's treated. So you get a feel for what that 80% looks like. And since we're doing this in an entire room, that is what a field of cannabis looks like compared to the control. So this obviously has a lot of commercial value. So some of you may now be wondering, David, are you seriously saying we should plant cannabis everywhere to solve global warming? We would certainly have a happier planet, right? But that is not, that is in fact not what I'm suggesting. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is that we take these coils and we put them on the ocean. Now, we have already designed this, and we've designed the power supplies that go with this. And the beauty of this system is that it's completely green. These coils are so low powered that they can be powered by solar. So in other words, you put these coils on pontoons, you float them over the ocean, and the solar cells that are collecting the energy from the sun drive the electronics. And there's no moving parts, it's local distributed power generation, and it's completely clean for the environment. So then that raises the question, if we are putting these on the ocean, how is that going to reduce global warming? Well, what we're going to do is grow phytoplankton. Now, phytoplankton is a single-celled plant, and we've done research on this now for about 12 years. And essentially, like any other plant, phytoplankton, as part of their food, is going to be using carbon dioxide that is found in the oceans that we've acidified and also in the environment. So this would be the normal process of photosynthesis. And the carbon dioxide then is converted by the plant as a building material. The beauty of this is that 80% of the world's oxygen is derived from phytoplankton. And phytoplankton are a very important part of the food chain. So in other words, we increase the amount of phytoplankton, it increases the food supply, and now we can have more fish in the ocean, and we can reduce the CO2 content of the ocean and in the atmosphere. Now, unlike cannabis, we've had extraordinary success with phytoplankton. We've been able to get the growth rates as high as 8 times over baseline. So in a very short period of time, we can reduce, if this is implemented globally, we can reduce the amount of CO2 that is in the oceans and in our atmosphere, and as a byproduct, we're putting more oxygen back into the atmosphere where it belongs, because oxygen levels have declined. So imagine for a moment a network marketing company that had a phytoplankton nutritional supplement, and every time you were using that product, you were contributing to the solution of global warming. Wouldn't that be cool? And since we're talking about increasing the food supply, increasing the amount of plants in the ocean, and increasing the number of fish, why don't we talk about global hunger and come back to that for a moment. One of the things that we've been creating with our technology, you're going to see in a few minutes, has a nice entry into this. First, another really shocking statistic. Over 70% of the world's people own less than $10,000. We should not be driving people into poverty. Over 10% of the world's population aren't getting proper nutrition. They don't have access to it. And we know most people don't have enough to eat. Now, what's really alarming about this is that we already produce enough food. The planet has capabilities to support a population of 10 billion people. This should not be something that we should allow, right? There's too many people on the planet as it is. But there's enough food, and enough food can be produced for that amount. We're just not doing a very good job. So we come back to our model of vertical farming as a potential solution, either localized or distributed. But imagine if you had a network marketing company that had a unit that you had at home which incorporated some of the technology that you've seen to grow fruits and vegetables more rapidly that were more nutritious than what you could get. And these foods are grown hydroponically without any type of herbicides or pesticides, no environmental pollutants, completely clean, completely organic. That would be really something. So you could have a home unit, or we could do this on even a larger scale by linking these units together. You could treat massive areas and grow enough food for you and your neighbors if you wanted to. And of course, looking at the bigger picture behind all of this, we use this technology not only to support our business and support our opportunity, but do something much bigger than all of us, which is help to solve some of the really important problems that we're all facing today. So I know this presentation was a little bit different than some of the ones that you usually hear from me, but it's important that we talk about these things as a community so you can see what the possibilities are and the direction we can go in. We don't have to be limited in the future to phototherapy products. We can expand beyond that, and we can make an impression on this world by working together that can be enormous and historical and life-changing for everybody. And at the end of the day, this is how I want to spend my time, making a difference in the world so that my kids and all of your kids can grow up in a better world. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.